Okay, in this video, I'm going to go through a homework problem. It's not one that I assigned, but it's kind of like the ones I assigned. Okay, so let me go ahead and get my pad set up here. And this is going to be problem, let me find it. It's out of chapter 4. I may do one out of chapter 5 too, if there's interest. This is the one about triangles. Let's see. This is 436, okay? So the problem says, sides of a triangle, write an application that reads 3 non-zero values entered by the user and determines and prints whether they could represent the sides of a triangle, okay? So in order to do this, we have to start with knowing how to solve this problem, okay? So if you were a little rusty on your triangles, some of you probably teach this stuff and know exactly how to do this, but I had to verify myself to make sure I had it right. And it turns out for something to be a triangle, so if we have sides A, B, and C, all of the following must be true. Or all the following must hold. Okay, we have to have that A plus B is greater than C, and A plus C is greater than B, and finally that B plus C is greater than A. So all three of those conditions have to hold, and if so, then it could be a triangle. If not, it couldn't be a triangle. Okay. So the next thing to think about is how we're going to do this. So this chapter is all about if statements, if and if else and else ifs and all that. So one can assume that's what they want you to do. Okay, they don't usually want you to do things you haven't covered yet. Okay, so it could start with asking the user for 3 sides. Again, I'm doing pseudocode here. Okay, and we want them to be answered. Well, I mean, we don't have to. We can make that decision. We are going to assume, I'm going to assume that they're integers and they have no decimal portion, but it works just as well if you have integers or have decimals, but we're not going to, okay? Then we have to basically test the input, okay? So we could have something like, and this is a good case or a good example of nested loops. So we can say if A plus B is greater than C, it's past the first hurdle. We're then going to test if A plus C is greater than B. That's the second hurdle. And then finally, and this, again, it's not Java. This is just scribbles, pseudocode. If B plus C is greater than A, then we have a triangle. Okay. If not, not a triangle. Okay. And the not a triangle is going to be a little bit tricky in that if any of these fail, we have to keep moving on, but no, if just one of them fails, we're done. So there are 3 points of failure. Okay, it could fail with an else on this if, an else on that if, and an else on that if. Okay, so I think we're going to need 3 different print statements for that, is my guess. Okay, so you want to kind of be thinking about how that goes. Okay, and just for the record, a 3, 4, 5 is a triangle. It's a right triangle. We use that a lot. And 3, 5, 8 turns out not to be a triangle. Okay, and we're going to use that in our tests so we know if we're working or not, rather than saying looks good enough. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead now and go over to Eclipse. Okay, and we're going to create a new program here, a new class. Okay, we're going to call this one. This is chapter 4, problem 36, and we can call it that because it's not an object we're using for something else. We want our public static void main. Okay, go ahead and get that in. Okay. So since we're going to be asking the user for stuff, we better do our import of the java.util.scanner. Okay. Make sure I've got all that code in there correct. java.util.scanner import. Yep. Okay. What doesn't it like? It should be before. Oh, it's before that. Sorry. It goes up here. There we go. Import java.util.scanner. There we go. Now we're good. Now it's happy. Again, it's a warning because we haven't used it, but we're not doing anything else. Okay. Let me make sure I'm sharing this because it doesn't look like I am. I wasn't sharing that. So let's share that, shall we? I haven't done much. There we go. That looks better. So that's all I've done. I've just created a new. So let me again go through that. Sorry about that. Did a file new, did class. I typed in the file name here, the chapter 4, C4, P36, problem 36, and I clicked on this public static void main. Okay, that's all I did. Okay, so once I have the utility in there, okay, then I can go ahead and start. And I like to go ahead and kind of put in some comments to space out what we're going to do. Okay, so we're first going to ask the user for the sides. Okay, we're then going to test the sides, you know, and then the output is going to be part of that. Okay, so by putting in comments, I just give myself some structure. Okay, and it's probably not a bad idea in this one when we're putting in, I think I can put comments at the very top. This is the test to see if sides entered can be a triangle. Okay, and then again, we're going to use the triangle equality law that said to be a triangle, must have all of the following. A plus B must be greater than C. A plus C has to be greater than B. And B plus C has to be greater than A. Okay. That's something you're likely to not remember. At least there's a possibility of that. It's also something somebody else seeing this program may not know. Okay, so that's how we're going to determine it. So I put the comments up there, and of course it would have your name and all that stuff. But that's the basics of what we're looking for here. Okay. So again, we've got our scanner up imported here. Okay, but we need to go ahead inside of our public main, and before we get to the asking, we have to create our scanner. We call it input. You can call it whatever you want, but why not call it input every time? You don't have to worry about it. Okay, you don't have to think, well, what did I name that? Okay, so we have our scanner called input. It's going to be a new scanner based on system in, which is the keyboard by default. Okay, we're also going to need to set up some integers, A, B, and C. Okay, these are going to be to represent sides. Okay, again, it's giving us warnings. We haven't used any of these, but we know that. Okay, so when it comes time to ask the user, we're not testing it, and we don't really have that capability, but we are just going to ask them to do the right things. We're going to say system.input.print. Again, we don't want the print line. Enter the first side as an integer. Hopefully they know what that means. Okay. And then once we've done that, then we can say that A is going to be equal to our input scanner object dot get, sorry, it's next int. Next int. Okay. It's not system though. It's just input. No, I'm losing my mind. System.out. It's like, don't program when you're tired. It's bad. Okay, system.out.print, enter the first side as an integer, and then we're going to input that. Okay, once we have that, to avoid further typo issues, I'm going to go ahead and copy this down, and one more time. I have to change this to second, and this to B, and this to third, and this to C. Okay. And it's not a bad idea, especially when you're learning, to go ahead and do a system.out.println. Let's say we do A, comma B, comma C. I wonder what that does. Depending on the language, it does different things. We'll see if it allows us to do that. It doesn't like the print line for that. I wonder why. Can't do int, int, int. What if I do a plus? That was added together, which may be okay. I'm not going to waste time on this. So I'm going to say, I'm sure there's a way to do that, but it's different in every language. I don't want to look it up. I'll print those out. Okay. Again, I'm just making sure that works. I'm going to delete it right away. So let's run this now to see. The first integer 1, 2, 3. It prints 1, 2, 3. Okay. If this was not working, nothing would work. Okay. We are getting the one warning we forgot about, and that's that we need to go down here and do an input.close on that input string. Tab gets it in the right spot. Okay. So just so that's okay. So we don't need this now. You can either comment it out or you can just delete it. We can go on to the next part, which is going to be testing out the sides. Okay. And again, we're going to have 3 if statements, and we're going to have 3 else's as well, because we have to worry about those prints. So in my experience, the best thing to do is do one at a time. Okay, so I'm going to start here with my if, again, from line 3 above. If A plus B is greater than C, okay, then I'm just going to say system.out.println triangle. Okay, we don't, it's not yet, but we're just going to assume that for now. Okay, and then while I've just got one, I'm going to go ahead and do an else. Okay, because if this is not true, the else is the system.out.println not a triangle. Okay, since they all 3 have to be true, the first one being false already means we're not a triangle. Okay, so once I've got that working, and you can test it if you want to make sure that you have something where that either works or doesn't work. Okay, but once we have this working, now we have to add the nested part. Okay, so instead of this line being the system.out.println it's triangle, we're not there yet, so we have to try the next one. So now I'm going to say if A plus C is greater than B. That's our second criteria. Now I'm going to say that's where we're going to print that out. It's still not correct yet, but you know, we're getting there. Okay. On this one, it also is going to have an else. If we fail at this one, then again, we're system.out.println not a triangle. Okay, so that's true as well. So for it to print print the triangle line, it now has to go through 2 if statements. Okay, so we're still not done. We still have one more test. Okay, so we're going to go here inside of this one again, and it indents over for us, which is good. The final test, if B plus C is greater than A. Now we really can print that out, and we're done with moving that around. Okay, going to end that one, and again we have an else here. System.out.println not a triangle. Okay. So there we go. I mean, that should do it. We're testing 3 times. There's no print message for if it passes just one. Okay. So, I mean, you could, if you really wanted to debug this, we could come up and say something here like a system.out.println passed first test. I wouldn't want to leave this in here, but just to keep it yourself straight. System.out.println passed second test. Okay, and then it would pass the third test. Okay, but you do need to have, it's funny, the editor does so much for you, but it won't put that semicolon automatically. You got to earn that one. Okay, so now we can run this and see if it works. Again, we know that a 3, 4, 5 should work. So I'm going to enter my 3, 4, 5. Pass the first test, pass the second test. It's a triangle. Okay, so now let's try it on the 3, 5, 8, which we know not to be a triangle. Okay, we do a 3, we do a 5, we do an 8. Not a triangle. Didn't even pass the first one. Okay, it's possible to pass the first and second and still not be a triangle. Okay, have we fully convinced ourselves this works? Probably not. You probably want to try a few more examples, and you can certainly look up online or do the math yourself as to what's a triangle and what's not a triangle. Okay, so one other thing that I would say, if you want to avoid the awkwardness of having that print statement so many times, we can do something else, and this is what's called a flag. It's used in programming a lot, and we haven't really gotten there yet. So this is kind of a preview of coming attractions. Okay, we can create a variable type. The book talks about Appendix D, where you have all the different types that you can have. One of those is a Boolean, and a Boolean holds a logical value true or false. And it turns out that in Java, that's lowercase. I think in Python, it's a capital letter, like capital T true, but I'm not sure. It does vary by language, but it's all lowercase in Python. So what I can do, how I can use this flag, we use the flag to keep track of some situation we're going to need later. Okay, so up here, when I'm declaring my variables, I can declare a Boolean variable, and let's call it what? T flag for triangle flag. I'm going to set it equal to false to begin with. Okay, and then I'm going to tab that over so it doesn't look ugly. Don't like ugly looking code. Okay, and now what I can do, it's false now. So I can look to see at some point if it becomes true. Okay, so in my code, I'm going to get rid of this line because I don't really care if it just passed the first test or not. I don't care if it passed the second test. We have that working. Okay, but down here, instead of printing this out, I'm instead just going to set that Boolean value. Okay, so I'm going to set the T flag equal to true. Okay, it's the only time it gets set to true. So I don't need an else here at all. This else can be gotten rid of. I don't care what happens there. Okay. In the same way, I can get rid of this else and this else. Okay. So now I've got to make sure I have enough of these. And luckily, it's going to tell me as I go along. Note that, again, if you saw that, it puts a little box around its mate. Okay. So now I've said my default up here is that it's not a triangle. So convince me that it is. If it makes it to this line, it sets it to true. If not, it's still false. Okay. So then down here, all I have to do is say if T flag. I don't have to say if T flag equals true because T flag is true. Okay. So I can just say if T flag, do a system.out.println triangle. Do one else here. System.out.println not a triangle. Now I just made this up on the fly, but it should work. We'll see. I got to get those in the right order. There we go. Okay. Then our input's closed, which should be good. Let's try it. See if this works. So now we've got to click in the box down here on this. I do a 3, 4, 5. It's a triangle. I do a 3, 5, 8. It's not a triangle. So I think it works. Okay. Is this better code? Yeah, you can argue that. I think it's a little clearer in that there's not as much going on. There's not as many variations and all that stuff, and not as many indentations. But both are correct. Okay, and there's not really much of a difference there. This one's a little bit shorter. Okay. Again, the book hasn't talked about flags yet, but you can use that to keep any condition that you want to do later. Okay. And for me, the red flag there, when I was putting together this program and I thought, I'm gonna have to do that print of not being a triangle 3 times, that feels wrong. Programmers often talk about the smell test. If you've taught math, you probably see that. You know, that if somebody gives you an answer like that, just doesn't smell right. Of course, it doesn't smell like anything. We don't have synesthesia, but it's just that it just something doesn't seem right. So you shouldn't have to do the 3 print statements. Now, with what we know, you had to. Okay. Okay, so that works. You could save that. You could turn it in if that were one of the problems. Again, that's 436, which I didn't ask you to do. Okay, but the other problems are like that. So what I wanted you to get from that is that it's important to solve the problems on paper. Okay, to make sure that you look up whatever you have to look up to make sure that you're getting the results that you want. Okay, make sure that you know how to solve things. And again, I found an example that is a triangle and one that's not. Okay, and I went ahead and input that way. You could also, if you want, sometimes if it's a complicated input, I'll just set those variables. A is equal to 3, B is equal to 4, and C is equal to 5, and not even put in the scanner stuff yet until I get the guts of the program working. Okay. Then beyond that, we had the 3 conditions that all 3 had to be true. So I did a nested if statement. Okay. And then I had to have an else for each of those if they weren't true to print out that it's not a triangle. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful. You know, I don't do these in advance. I try to go through the process I'm looking at to solve these. Okay. And I'll continue to do these throughout the semester. Note that I will mess up sometimes and have to start over, pause the video, go look something up. All kinds of things could go wrong. And I think that's part of the process. So rather than give you a glib, I downloaded the book answers, here's the answer, I want you to see me solve the problems real time and sometimes have to backtrack. Okay. So if this is helpful, let me know and I will continue to do them. I can do another example from chapter 5. I'll try to do that tomorrow. I'm already tired as you see me bumble around. So that should be it for now. Okay. So remember this week, we're going to be meeting on Thursday at 7. That's tomorrow. It's Wednesday right now at 7. And we can talk about all this stuff. Okay.